Alright, so if you're tuning into this video then, I'm going to go ahead and safely assume that you have already seen the results from the LCS finals this last weekend, and that what we're about to talk about is, of course, no spoiler, no surprise to you. If you haven't seen those matches, I would highly recommend that you go watch them. There's quite a bit to unpack. Some pretty nice results from them as well. Maybe nothing too surprising, but worth a watch either way. But anyways, if you haven't seen them, then just be aware that the spoilers start now. All right, so with TSM securing the finals victory in the summer finals just this weekend, I think as is kind of par for the course, the discussion surrounding North America and our chances at Worlds, and what our bracket picture is going to start to look like, when the draw comes on September 15th, has already kind of started. And from what I've been able to see of it, it's a mixture of positive and negative, but it is more on the side of negative. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there's sort of this feeling that Cloud9 should be going. And that's understandable. Based on their spring split performance, they obviously were the most dominant team in the LCS. They had a fantastic record. Their team was absolutely playing out of their mind. And, had there been an MSI, it would have been nice to see them to go. I'm fairly sure they would have represented us pretty well, and I think that maybe that might have been a missed opportunity, but unfortunately Riot made the decision to cancel MSI, I think for the right reasons, and so I guess we'll never get to know. But obviously coming off the TSM win in this summer split, they're not going, and I think the reason that some of that negativity towards North American prospects at Worlds this year is trending so heavily towards a negative. Is the fact that Cloud9 is not going and FlyQuest is. And I kind of want to allay some of that fear and maybe kind of put things into perspective. Yes, Cloud9 maybe at the time of spring was a stronger team. And, they certainly had it together better than any other team that, we could have hoped to have sent at that time. But this is some months later since spring. And the reality is Cloud9 just isn't what they were in spring. They didn't win nearly as much. They weren't nearly as together as they are now, or were then. And I think for the most part, I think that if Cloud9 were to be going now, they wouldn't be doing any service to anyone trying to represent North America. And for some people, that's not something that they want to hear. For sure they would. I think a lot of people would for sure like to have that comfortability of, oh man, we're sending Cloud9 to Worlds again. Because they are that staple for North America. It's one of the teams that always goes. But that doesn't do justice to FlyQuest, and that definitely doesn't put into perspective the amount of work that FlyQuest put in this split. Keep in mind, FlyQuest was decent, in the spring split. Yeah, they fell short a little bit of the mark, and they certainly didn't reach the goals that they probably aspired to make it all the way to the end and win. But they did in summer. Now, they didn't win, which obviously is a bummer for that organization, but it's farther than they've been ever in a while. And I mean, they were really, really close to winning this one. Keep in mind, it went 5 games in the finals. So, this consensus that because FlyQuest is going to Worlds and Cloud9 is not, that we're sending a weaker team, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. FlyQuest is just as strong, if not stronger, than Cloud9, has been this whole summer split. Now, do I want to try and compare this current FlyQuest to the spring Cloud9? Not necessarily, but that's, comparing apples to oranges. Yeah, they're still fruits, but they're inherently different. The fact of the matter is FlyQuest is more than strong enough to hold their own at Worlds right now. Now, what that means going, for them as they start to kind of find out which teams they're going to be taking on, as their bracket starts to shake out and as play-ins starts to kind of finalize, I don't know. We'll have to see. And unfortunately, without having MSI this year, we don't really know how all of the teams stand internationally for sure. The kind of consensus is that, Dam 1 Gaming is scary, Top Esports is scary, that there's some level of depth to the other teams that are being sent from those two regions, from the LPL and the LCK. EU is going to be sending 2 very good representatives at minimum. Rogue is going to do fine, I think. Mad Lions, some questions there as to whether or not they'll be able to kind of show up and perform. But I think North America is not short of talent itself. Obviously FlyQuest is going to be able to do all right. Again, how well they do is completely up to them. But I think it's reasonable to set expectations that are fairly high for them. And the same goes for TSM and for Team Liquid. I think, one of the other consensuses with Team Liquid is that they kind of lucked out in not having to go to group stage, that they actually are going to get time to play in the play-in stage, start to find their rhythm, start to figure out what works for them, kind of get a hold on the meta, and take time to start ramping up, towards group stage. One of the great things about not having to play in group stage for this year is you don't get put into what is going to be widely considered the group of death, which is the group with all the first seeds. That's a terrifying group to have to get put in. And I think if you're Team Liquid, while you would like to have gotten second place, and I guess your organization would have liked to have gotten first place, there has to be some level of relief that, oh man, at least we don't have to go to the group with all of the first seeds from all of the other regions. And so, if we're trying to play the game of long odds, that does help increase your chances of making it further. Now, that being said, they still have to play play-ins, which can also decrease your odds because you have to play all of the other regions that don't automatically get seeded into the group stage. And there's some good teams that are going to be going in there. So it's not going to be easy by it's not going to be free win by any means. They're going to have to work for it. But if they can establish themselves fairly early on, they'll do okay. Same thing for FlyQuest and TSM. TSM is going to have a hard road ahead of them because come group stage time, they're going to have to put up or shut up. And for real this time, because there are a lot of good teams that are going to be in that first bracket. You're talking about G2, you're talking about Dam1, you're talking about Top Esports. Good teams in there. Really, really good teams. And if they want to come out ahead in that group, they're really, really going to have to put in the work and they're going to have to be prepared. One of the things that people aren't talking about right now is how difficult that's going to be for all of the teams when they even get to China. For some of you, you may not know, but when those teams get there, they have to spend their first 14 days in quarantine. That means they can't leave their hotel room for any reason for that period, and that can be rough on a player's mental. Undoubtedly. I think the teams that are going to come ahead, and this isn't just a North American thing, this is an all-encompassing thing. The teams that come out ahead in that period are going to be the ones that use that time constructively and keep themselves together and keep themselves occupied, and then use it to prepare and start prepping for the challenges that are going to be ahead of them. And this is going to be especially important for Team Liquid because as soon as that period of quarantine is over, they go straight into games. Now, the teams that have to play in group stage, they get a little bit of a breather. Once quarantine's over, they can go out, kind of stretch their legs. They can kind of sit back, watch what everybody else is doing. But for the ones that have play-ins, it's straight to the grindstone. And I think the teams that manage their time well and actually have their mental together are the ones that are going to come out ahead there. And that's going to be especially important for North American teams because not only do they have to deal with the same conditions that every other team is going to be in, and then obviously having to deal with the expectations of Worlds, but they also have to deal with the stigma of North America, and that hasn't gotten better over the last couple of years. I think harkening back to the last two Worlds appearances from North America, unfortunately, we had some teams that really didn't need to be there. 100 Thieves. Say what you want. That team didn't deliver in any way, shape, or form. Not to say that the other North American teams delivered over them. Cloud9 certainly did. But, 100 Thieves fell short of the mark. And they understood that even going in. It was sort of a, kind of a joke, sort of a meme going in that, we shouldn't have gotten here. And then to, add salt to the wound, then the next year, the exact same thing happens with Clutch Gaming through no fault of their own. They I think they gave it an honest effort and did the best they could, but 0-6, not good. And so coming into this World, it's like sort of the same feeling of like, oh my gosh, another team got in when they weren't supposed to, and Cloud9 should have been there, not FlyQuest, or Cloud9 and not TSM or the other teams. But that isn't the case this year, and there's no reason to feel that way. FlyQuest is a good team. They're a good North American team, and they have a decent shot at making just as good a run as anybody in Worlds. Okay, they're not worse than Cloud9. Again, comparing apples to oranges, there's no sense in trying to compare this current FlyQuest to Spring Split Cloud9. Two inherently different teams, two inherently different splits, different metas, and everything else that comes with that. So I think that it's okay to expect a lot out of FlyQuest and out of TSM and Team Liquid and out of North America in general. Because to be honest, if there's going to be a time where it would be great to prove yourself, it's going to be in this Worlds where two big regions are sending an extra team. Some of you, most of you probably heard, but in case you haven't, the LPL gets to send a fourth team, and the European region the LEC gets to send another team. Okay, and those teams are JDG Gaming, or sorry, LDG Gaming from the LPL, and uh, Mad Lions, Mad Lions from Europe. Um, there's discussion about whether or not those teams should be there the same way that there is in North America. There's even more talk of should the LPL and should the LEC have even been given those extra two slots. Should they have gone to a minor region? Maybe provide an opportunity for a region that's been struggling for a while or been kind of getting closer and closer every year to maybe get a little bit of a better chance at Worlds. I'm not going to weigh in on that issue right now. I do have my own opinions about that. But regardless of where you stand on the issue, the fact of the matter is those two regions have those extra teams. So it does complicate things for North America. It complicates things for every region. Maybe a little less so for Korea because their third seed automatically gets to go into the group stage due to previous world performances, which I think is fair. There's an argument to be made that the last 2 years that region's kind of slumped, and so maybe their third seed should have to play as the same as the rest of us. I'm a little bit of that opinion myself, and it doesn't have to get you don't have to get too wild to weigh in on that one. And the last 2 years of Worlds for Korea hasn't exactly been great, but I'm sure a lot of SKT fans will be happy that if SKT does beat Gen G tomorrow, they get to go straight to group stage, and you'll have another year of Faker at Worlds, which is fun in its own right, but again complicates things for North America. Now you've got a proven veteran team that's going to be at Worlds with the best player in the world, Faker. Who they're going to be driven and ready to compete. They haven't had a lot of success over the last couple of years, and they're going to be hungry for another win. But with that in mind, it's perfectly fine. It's not just acceptable, perfectly fine. It's you should be putting high expectations on these teams from North America. You should expect them to do well because they have the capability to do it. If you look across the talent across the rosters of all the teams that are going, there's a lot to be happy about. I mean, you have a lot of really good players that are coming back. TSM is going to Worlds for the first time in a couple of years. You've got Bjergsen and Doublelift Biofrost, going. They've got a fantastic breakout jungler, Spica. You've got Broken Blade, who's a standout top laner who can hold his own with just about anybody in the world. That team's rocking and ready rocking and ready to go. And they're really hungry for competition. They don't just want to go to Worlds and can just be there. They want to compete. They want to be up there, and be considered just as dangerous and just as noteworthy as anybody else there. Same goes for Team Liquid. A lot of veterancy on that team. With Impact and Core JJ, with Jensen. Those guys have been to Worlds a lot, and they've got 2 Worlds winners on that team. You've got Tactical, who's a breakout ADC, who's doing really well. Sometimes considered to be a bit coin flippy, but he is consistent. Brox is on that team. He's been to Worlds as well. There's a lot of experience on that team. And then FlyQuest, admittedly, it is a newer roster as a team to the scene, and they're going to have their own challenges. But I think a jungler like Santorin will be fine. I think Power of Evil will be fine. Wild Turtle, all those guys are going to be great at Worlds. They just need time, and so set your expectations high for them. And tell them about it, but encourage them. Don't be negative. And constantly tell them, oh gosh, here we go, North America Worlds again. It's no, I mean, get behind them. Like, if you're going to do it, now's the year to do it. And, be happy that these teams are going because these are really good teams. Like, there's no need to feel negative at the level. We're sending the highest level possible. This is a lot of veterancy in the North America, League Championship going to Worlds. A lot of it. These guys have experience, and if anybody's going to win it, it's going to be these guys. So definitely support them and be vocal about your support. Have your expectations and, be verbal about your expectations. Hey, we expect you guys to win, but encourage them and be behind them 100%. That's how regions win. That's how teams win. That's where players find strength, and that's where championships get made. That's where dynasties get formed. That's how SKT got there, and that's how North America can get there.